afternoon, Jones and Keefe on WEEI. A lot of ways to listen. You can stream anytime on the Odyssey app, as well as the iHeartRadio and TuneIn apps. We've talked a lot of Celtics this week. You hear Brad Stevens there yesterday discussing the official trades. They went official, finalized. Porzingis, Andrew Holiday, as well as an outlook on the rest of the offseason. I personally was a little discouraged by that answer. Best move we can make is Tatum getting out of a walking boot.
Yeah.
Justin Turpin, Turp from WEEI, joining us here, Pure Hoops with Turp. You were there yesterday, Turp. What'd you think?
I thought he was rather candid. I mean, he straight up said that they made offers to Al Horford and Luke Cornett and admitted that he wasn't sure what he could really talk about that, and admitted that Al Horford probably wasn't going to be back, which I thought was interesting. And I thought the whole thing surrounding the luxury tax as well, where he acknowledged the benefits of it, but also acknowledged that that's not a priority for Bill Chisholm and the new ownership group. I thought that part was interesting too. So I think he's been really upfront and honest about this whole thing while being optimistic and also being a realist at the same time, where you keep hearing him mention this North Star and it's about competing for a championship, but it feels like that's pretty far away. And he also was, another thing that stood out to me was the bigs, when he was asked about how comfortable he is with the front court, what they have right now. Obviously, it's just Luka Garza. Xavier Tillman is more of a four, but he can slide in there. Nemish Keita, there's not really a ton there. And he said, we'll wait and see what happens. And to me, that sounded like, yeah, they might suck on paper and, we'll see what happens.
Where do you stand now on Anthony Simons and even George Niang being with the team?
Yeah, I mean, for right now, if getting under the tax is not one of their priorities, it would make sense. It shouldn't be.
I mean, the tax, not the apron. The tax.
The apron, but it's less than $500,000 that they're over the apron.
And so they don't have to do it till the deadline.
Till the deadline anyway, at the end of the year, the end of the league calendar. And they can get under the second apron by as simple as just waiving J.D. Davidson's non-guaranteed contract. So that's not an issue. But if you're going to get under the tax, you'd have to do it for 2 of the next 3 years. And when Jason Tatum comes back, the expectation from the fan base and pretty much everyone else is that you're going to go right back into spending and right back into trying to maximize the prime of one of the best players in the NBA. So I don't think it makes any sense to duck under now. Maybe if you're at the deadline and things are kind of faltering a little bit, this team is underachieving and they're not really living up to what people think they can. I know you have them winning pretty close to the top of the Eastern Conference there, and I think that's a real possibility. There is still talent on this team. So I think it makes sense to hold on to those guys until the deadline and see where you're at and make your decisions there.
I think you mentioned Brad was pretty candid yesterday. And I'd agree. I mean, he said we made trades because of the second apron.
Which everyone knew.
Yeah, but I don't agree that, basketball penalties were the reason why. But I think he told you right there, like, there's not a lot of big moves coming. The biggest thing we can do is Tatum getting out of a boot. He also talked about the returns they got for Holiday and Porzingis. He's like, hey, we made the moves because of the second apron, but we're fortunate because we like the players we got back. I thought his original statement that got released in a press release about Anthony Simons was pretty terse.
Yeah.
And, not very flowery. He was saying nice things about the players they got yesterday, which makes me wonder, are they a little more locked in on keeping those guys, which I want. I would be happy at least on Simons. I don't care about Niang. But at least on Simons, I do want him here. How'd you read his compliments of the players?
He definitely left the door open. I mean, I'd imagine just with the salary that Anthony Simons is on right now and what they're doing with the retooling year, that they're going to keep trying to explore trading him. That's just kind of the situation they're in. And it makes sense, I mean, to keep him around, like I said, until the deadline, especially now if they've been actively trying to move him and nobody's really biting. Gas up his value. He's going to get tons of shots in this offense, and I think I've mentioned this with you guys before, that Joe Mazzulla can really help fix his defense. I think that's something that's been overlooked with Joe, is how good he's done, or how good of a job he's done with the defense. I mean, they finished second, and fourth in defensive rating since Joe's been here, and obviously it helps when you're surrounded by good defenders. Like Jaylen Brown's a great defender. Derek White's a great defender. So having those guys on the court with you helps mask your defensive deficiencies. So I think there's a win-win for both sides to at least keep him until the trade deadline. And I mean, I know all three of us are all over it. I mean, we'd like to see him stick around for longer than that. I mean,
for sure,
you don't find a scorer like that, for the price that they got him at. I know Drew Holiday is a hell of a player and they're definitely going to miss him, but in the long term, this could be a good fit for the Celtics. It's just tough looking at it. He's going to be extension eligible next year, obviously on an expiring deal. It's probably going to be around 25 to 30 million. If at that point Holiday was making 30, you'd think they're really going to turn around and give it to Simons. I don't know. So the whole thing's kind of in flux, but again, it makes a lot of sense to hold on to him until the deadline.
What do you think of all the Damian Lillard discussion?
I think it's interesting, and I think it does make a lot of sense for both parties. I mean, the expectation, again, is, especially if they stay in the tax, is that they're going to be competitive again for the 26-27 season. That sounds so gross to say.
Yeah.
But,
They like it just, I don't want them to punt on the season because we just saw an Indiana Pacers team,
Right.
which all credit to them, like really well coached. Halliburton's an awesome player, and like they had guys step up and play well. But if Neesmith and Nembhard are starting players on a NBA Finals team, why can't Brown, White, and a few other guys scrap it together in an Eastern Conference that's wide open? But all indication that you get is we got to be ready when Tatum returns.
Right, and you can still make some noise this year. And again, Brad Stevens isn't ruling out that Jason Tatum returns this year. I know he won't put a timeline on it. He's been very, very intentional about that and just kind of letting him progress. And he's been very clear, too, that they're not going to rush him back. The Indiana Pacers already ruled out Tyrese Halliburton for the year.
Right.
Brad Stevens wasn't willing to make that declaration. And we'll see. I mean, we see all the videos that he's sharing, and it seems like he's progressing at a good pace, but they don't want to rush him back whatsoever. And if that means kind of punting on this year and just trying to go, we've seen them do this before, right? We saw it with the Isaiah Thomas years. Like, they went to the conference finals that year. You mean to tell me a guy like Jaylen Brown can't have a season like that? A guy like Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, even Anthony Simons. Like, they have talent on this team. I just think too often it's been like, oh, they're going to be like the Wizards. They're going to be like the Jazz. Like, that's just not the case. Like, there is still talent on this team.
No, we read the BetMGM over-under yesterday. It's 43.5, which is a big drop from the year prior. They were 58.5, but 43.5 would still put you out of the play-in
They're not
in the East a year
team.
ago. Yeah, I don't think so either. And I look, I think they can be better than that. What do you think Lillard's going to have left in the tank? Because I get what Keefe is saying, where you do want to retool the team for 2027. Like, I want them to compete in a wide-open East this year, but I acknowledge they're not winning a championship. Even competing in a wide-open East, championship is not a realistic expectation. It could be in 2027. So I do get the interest level in Lillard. That's assuming he's even the Lillard you got in Milwaukee, never mind the Lillard you got in Portland.
Right.
He's older. He's on the wrong side of an Achilles. What do you think they would actually get, or whatever team signs him will actually get when he's back on the floor?
I mean, that's the interesting part. I mean, because a lot of his game, too, is finesse and its acceleration and all that stuff that you need your Achilles and threes, which would be a good thing for the Celtics. But he turns 35 next week, assuming he misses all of next year. He's going to be 36 when he hits the floor again. And I think the financial aspect of it makes a lot of more sense, right? Because he's got all this money still coming to him from Milwaukee that he can take less to come to a team like Boston. And I also think like there just won't be as much stress on him. Assuming the core stays intact, where you'll have Jason Tatum as your clear number one, you'll have Jaylen Brown, you'll have Derek White, and you'll have Peyton Pritchard. You'll have all these scorers around you that he's not going to be asked to do what he was asked to do in Portland or even in Milwaukee. So I think it makes sense for both sides to at least consider it, especially if he wants to go out and actually try to have a chance to win something. I think if you're the Celtics, right, I think a lot of teams are going to do this. You're going to dip into the second apron, then you're going to dip back out, and it's just kind of going to be like a back and forth type of thing. That's the way the league is set up right now, and I think it makes a lot of sense for him to at least consider it, especially if he wants a chance to win. And you mentioned a couple times now, the Eastern Conference is wide open.
Oh, yeah.
You get Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown back on the floor together, and you still got Derek White and those guys. Like, this is a team that's going to be ready to compete again when Tatum's back.
What would you have to pay Lillard?
That's the thing is, like, I would imagine he's willing to. I don't think it'd be a full-on minimum. I don't think.
Yeah,
it'd be that.
I think he could do better than that, but I don't know.
But mid-level?
Probably at the mid-level.
Mid-level over a couple of years is the one that I've seen. Yeah.
So what is that?
5 and change, almost 6, I think, right?
Which would, so
let's
between
call
like 6 and 10.
Okay,
would be my guess.
So again, that in the grand scheme of things isn't a ton. I just wonder though, if you're Bill Chisholm and you've already sort of said, all right, we got to get under the apron, we got to shed salary. We're paying Tatum $54 million basically to rehab. Let's give 6 to 10. So $60+ million is not even going to be on the court this year.
Right.
I feel like is tough when you should be trying to compete. Now, I'm not saying like sell out for this season or anything, but like you should be as competitive as possible because you never know how things are going to play out. That's why, as much as I love Lillard, the player, I have questions about him recovering from this injury.
Yeah.
He also had like blood clots prior to this injury, his age, but then also he's like it's just money that you could be using on another player that might actually help you, including like a starting big man.
I mean, I wonder what teams are going to offer him something, right? If like the Celtics are his best offer and they're like, hey, you're going to have to wait a year until you're actually going to play. I wonder if he's willing to sit that out and wait. I mean, it's just about, he has an advantage now because he's still getting that money from Milwaukee. So if he wanted to wait around and see if like, hey, the Celtics give me the best chance to compete and win a title, and he wants to wait around, and you're only passing on $5 million, and in the grand scheme of things, for him, it's really not that big of a deal. I don't know. It just depends on where his head is at, I guess.
Would you have any interest in Bradley Beal, who is, it sounds like, going to get bought out in Phoenix? I've seen him kind of ticketed to the Clippers.
Yes.
Would you have any interest in Beal?
I'm all set with that one.
Me too.
I'm all set with that. We've done this before.
The only reason I ask, at least he would play this year, whereas Lillard would be sitting out.
That's true.
But yeah, Beal feels pretty cashed.
And what would the money take for him, right? That would almost certainly put you back into the second apron for this season. And, you don't go out of the second apron to go right back in. They're eventually going to, but it's not going to be this year. Like, they're going to come out of the second apron this year. That was clear, because if they weren't, they would have kept Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. So, yeah, I don't think there's any chance of that happening just because of the salary he's gonna demand. And it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of maneuver it, right? Because obviously you have trade pieces in Simons and Niang. I think you want to kind of keep the core intact. I thought another interesting part of Brad Stevens' press conference yesterday is when he was mentioning the core of this year. He mentioned Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, and Sam Hauser. And Sam Hauser obviously has been a common name in trade talks.
Because I was surprised when you were talking about tradable players, you didn't even lump in Hauser there. No. So Brad had him as part of the core.
Brad did mention him as part of the core yesterday, and that makes a lot of sense.
Not a great core.
I think that makes a lot of sense to me to hold on to him. I mean, the lineups with Tatum and Hauser in it were some of the most efficient on the team last year, and it's hard to find a guy that shoots 40%.
I was going to say, as soon as you get rid of, he seems like an obvious guy to get rid of because of the $10 million spike now, or like he goes from like $2 to $10 million. But then as soon as you are good, that's the exact guy you're looking
for.
That's a
manageable
we need him
contract
back now.
too. Like,
and it's really not much,
contract.
when you're paying other guys $30, $50 million.
Right. It's 10 for the next 2 years, and that goes up to, I think, 11 and 12 in years 3 and 4. That's very manageable for an elite floor spacer who I think is an underrated rebounder as well, and is very efficient with your best player on the floor. I mean, it's all about floor spacing with this team. That's something that Joe Mazzulla has done a great job in really teaching these guys the importance of spacing the floor, and that's kind of what makes their offense their offense. And
well, that's the thing.
He's one of the best in the game.
If they keep Simons, Hauser, Niang, I mean, they're going to break their previous record for threes. Like, they're going to shoot even more threes than they did before,
even without Tatum.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree,
because those guys will take even more. So, like, Tatum's shots, especially if Simons is still here, I mean, he could take most of those shots. Off
the top of my head, I think in the games that Hauser started, he took 5 or 6 threes a game. And I'd imagine if he's sticking around,
it does.
He's going to start. My guess would probably be Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Jaylen, and then Neemias Queta. I think that's or maybe Luka Garza. That's your 5.
See, I like the idea of keeping Pritchard off the bench as like the 6th man, but maybe you just can't.
I think they do that with Simons.
Yeah.
I'm with Keefe. I'd rather have
Pritchard was so good
bench.
at it.
I'd rather have Pritchard off the bench than Simons, but either or, fairly interchangeable.
I mean, regardless, he's going to play the most minutes on the team this year.
Yeah.
What's the latest on Horford? You asked Brad yesterday where it stood. He said it was unlikely. They've made offers to Cornette, now a Spur, and Horford. He made it sound unlikely. What's the latest? Is he going to retire? Is he going to the Lakers? Is he going to the Warriors? What's your best guess?
I mean, now that the Lakers got 8, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for him to go there. I think it's right now it's Warriors or retirement, and I think that's what he's considering. It seems like the Celtics, and Brad Stevens explicitly said this yesterday, they definitely made an offer to both Cornette and Horford. And there was probably some conversation in there by him saying that it was unlikely, and this is just reading between the lines, that Horford didn't like that offer. And it probably wasn't a lot of money, and that's the reality of the situation the Celtics are in. For him, does it really make a lot of sense to come back at 39 years old and play for a gap year? Like, does it really make a lot of sense
if Tatum was healthy, I think maybe he plays for whatever, and he's come back and runs it back. But, yeah, once he went down.
And that's right where his tune changed, right when Tatum went down. I think he was dead set, always vocal about wanting to come back. I remember when Florida won the national championship, he was like, well, maybe we'll be playing with Walter Clayton Jr. next year. Like, he was so dead set on it. And right when Tatum got hurt and they got eliminated, that's where his tune kind of shifted a little bit. And then, everyone kind of had an idea that, like, it just didn't make sense anymore with the timeline of the team, as much as it sucks. Like, obviously, Al Horford's a big fan favorite here and, an all-time Celtic, like Brad Stevens said yesterday, but the timeline just doesn't make sense anymore, unfortunately, on that. And if you're Al Horford, like, just go out and compete, like, go take another shot. If you still, and you can make a good money, like, the Warriors are going to give him some money, especially depending on what happens with Kuminga. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense for him, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense for the Celtics to hold on to him.
Do you have any prediction for any, like, that next wave of guys that might make any kind of an impact with the team? Talking about, like, Shireman or Hugo Gonzalez, for God's sakes, like any of these other guys. I mean, Tillman might be forced into that.
Yeah,
J.D. Davidson, people will bring up from time to time.
I think he's going to be the one that gets waived to get below the second apron, depending on what happens here. I just think
it's a G League MVP.
That is a G League MVP. Yeah,
yes.
And
history.
Cato was the runner-up for G League MVP 3 years ago. So look at these guys. Look at all these guys. I mean, I think it'd be Shireman. He's going to get opportunities, and so is Jordan Walsh. Like, these younger guys are going to get opportunities.
Just to
play.
Circle back, Shireman is why I assumed Hauser was expendable.
Right.
But so I wouldn't be surprised at all if Shireman is the one who emerges out of that group.
Shireman's probably the one that emerges. I think Hugo Gonzalez is going to get a chance too. I think he'll probably start this year in Maine if I had to guess, but he's going to get a chance to play this year. I mean, depending on where they kind of are shaking up as the season goes along, like they might just lean into this youth movement and see who can kind of play with these guys when they come back.
How'd you read Brad's answers yesterday on Joe Mazzulla? He confirmed he has multiple years left on his deal. He was asked, is it a priority to work out an extension? He didn't really answer it. He said, well, yeah, we want Joe here for a long time, but he didn't answer the priority aspect directly. So how'd you read Brad Stevens on Mazzulla yesterday?
I honestly think he might just be sick of the question. He's got it 3 times this offseason. Like, he's answered it a couple times now that Joe Mazzulla is under contract for the foreseeable future. Bill Chisholm and his wife are big fans of Joe. There's no reason to think that he wouldn't be in line for an extension. I think he's the guy that kind of...
Let me give you a reason. Bill Chisholm. We got a text, by the way. Guys, you have no idea what Chisholm is doing. You're already ripping him. Come on, see what happens. We are watching what happens. He's peeling stuff off.
He got rid of 2 players that they just brought in.
I don't know. The owner feels like he doesn't want to hand out a lot of money when it comes to the luxury tax. Maybe he doesn't want to hand out a lot of money on a coach. And maybe Mazzulla wants to be well compensated.
I mean, regardless, he's under contract for the next couple of years.
No. Don't you think, though, that next year kind of I guess the money thing is a different factor altogether. But Mazzulla, I don't know how much pressure is even on him for next year without Tatum. I feel like losing in the second round, and I'll say I know Tatum got hurt at the end, but they were going to lose the series anyway. So you lose in the second round, and then if Tatum was back and you lost in the second round again, the way NBA teams go through coaches, he might have been gone. But now, if you just make the playoffs with a team without Tatum, I think you're back again. I think it sort of extends his lifetime regardless of what his contract is.
I mean, it's a win-win for him.
Yeah, right.
I think he's in the best situation out of everybody for this. Either they overachieve and it's like, whoa, look at what Joe's doing with this team, or they underachieve and it's like, oh, yeah, it's a gap year.
So
whatever.
I think if they missed let's say they missed the playoffs.
That's not happening.
If they aren't one of the top 10 teams, then maybe they take a look at it. What the hell happened?
Right, because it's like, oh, wow, you won a championship with the best roster.
Yeah.
Now you have a worse roster and you couldn't even make the playoffs. What good are you?
Especially in the state of the Eastern Conference. If you're not in the top 10, then that is alarming.
So, I mostly agree with you, Turp, on this. I think it's kind of a bonus year for him. I think he has a lot of job security, but that's the scenario I could see where if they really, really underachieve, they really are terrible, what's the point in keeping him?
I mean, I think that's just kind of leading
into
to the gap year there. I mean, if they're actually going for it and trying to win and the team stinks, then maybe they do kind of examine it there. But I don't think there's any reason to think that Mazzulla won't be here for the foreseeable future. I mean, he's a great standing with Brad Stevens. The new ownership loves him. There's nowhere he's going.
Best guess, are they done? In terms of like Simons and guys like that, are they done?
I would assume so. I think Brad Stevens made that pretty clear yesterday that there's nothing imminent. This is what they're going to go into the year with, at least to start. And they at the deadline, depending on where they're at, that's where they'll make additional changes. But obviously they're going to get into the second apron, but that doesn't happen until the end of the league year. And then we'll see what happens with the tax, and that all will happen at the trade deadline. But I think right now it seems like this is the team that they're going to enter the season with. I think Simons is definitely still a trade candidate, but other than that, I think Simons, Hauser, and Niang have been the ones that we continuously hear about. Doesn't seem like Hauser's on that conversation anymore. I think he's out of that conversation after listening to where Brad put him in yesterday when referencing this core. So it's down to Simons and Niang, and I just think there's a lot more upside to keeping him. Clearly, if you've been shopping him now and there's no one biting, gas up his value. He's going to get a ton of opportunity in this offense, and again, that can fix his defense as well. So I think this is what we're looking at going into opening night, at least to start.
Pure Hoops with Turp, back by popular demand. I'll tell you, Turp, already, at Jones and Keefe on Twitter. Bob, having Justin Turpin on the show is one of the very best things you goofballs do.
How about that? Oh,
thank you, Bob.
You know what this actually is?
Oh.
We're going to dust off our new segment. Is it a compliment?
Oh, nice.
Which is a game I've always wanted to play. When people text in sometimes, hey, guys, love the show. I'm like, is it a compliment?
Okay.
No. So
one of the very best things
this is
we
one
do.
Of the very best things.
Is that it's a compliment for Turp?
It's for sure a compliment for Turp.
Is it a compliment for us?
No.
Maybe not.
I don't think so.
How about this one? Our good pal Ray in Cumberland says,
he tweets,
High Noon with Turp. It's actually Pure Hoops with Turp, Ray.
Yep. At High Noon.
at High Noon. He says, always a good segment.
Guy Ray.
Compliment. Yes, compliment.
My guy.
I think so.
Always a good segment.
Okay.
It depends on how you read that one.
That's true.
Is it a compliment?
I think it
not?
is.
I think the people love Pure Hoops with Turp, Pure Off-Season Hoops with Turp. Follow him on Twitter at Justin M. Turpin for all your Celtics news and takes as well. Turp, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Messi, anytime goal tonight.
Messi,
Yes,
anytime goal.
It's minus 125.
We'll parlay it with the Revs money line. There we go.
Two goals?
Two goals. Let's take a look.
All right, let's get in the lab, guys. Let's get in the lab,
back at the
boys. We'll
shop.
cook something up for the Messi match tonight.